Hello, welcome back to another episode of Essence, the show and podcast. Today we're diving into the alchemy of rest and why it is so crucial in the creation of your massive, epic, and sacred success. The way that we've been conditioned to work is very much in this linear model, this linear planning and executing, in the way that we feel like we need to show up and be 100% productive all the time, day in and day out. And what the reality is that we're actually missing a crucial piece of the cycle of creation, and that is rest. Today, we're going to dive into what it means to rest, the science behind rest, the importance of a pause moment, and how that can actually fuel the success of what it is that you're working towards, your goals, your creations, and what you're able to call in your life. So if you're someone who's always jumping from one thing to the next, as soon as you finish something, you're right into the next thing, working towards the next goal, or if you are just someone who's really determined to bring more flow into how you are working and how you are showing up so that you have more space to enjoy your life, this episode is for you. Welcome back, my loves. Thank you for joining me here today. I am so honored that you chose to click play on this episode. This is going to be such a juicy episode because I am getting into the science behind rest. We're going to be talking about your nervous system, how we can regulate stress levels and actually reduce stress. We're also going to be talking about how your creativity and innovation is directly linked to rest. So if you are coming up against any form of writer's block, no matter what industry you're feeling a lack of motivation, you're feeling a lack of momentum, this episode is going to be so powerful for you. And it really comes down to our entire mission here at Flow Coaching, which is to revolutionize the way that you work. My name is Olivia Heine, and I am an NLP and sacred success coach. So I'm really here to help you revolutionize your work. And what we're specifically focusing on is bringing back your body holistically into how you are working. We use your cyclical nature in order to do that. And like I mentioned before, rest is a vital part of this cycle of creation that tends to be disregarded and ignored. So without further ado, I'm going to dive straight into this topic. Please, if you are here for the first time, I invite you to subscribe to this podcast on the YouTube channel, or if you're listening to this on a podcast app, make sure you hit that follow button so that you can be updated on the weekly episodes that come out. It also means the world to me when you leave a comment letting me know what your biggest aha moment was or takeaway, and it's also super helpful for you to just process what it is that you've learned. And of course, if you have the time and you feel called to do so, I would invite you to leave a 5-star rating and review if it feels aligned. Again, really helps us get this podcast out there and gets more people listening to it. And if you have someone in your life who you know would enjoy or benefit from listening to this podcast, send it along to them. Share the wealth, share the knowledge. So let's start by diving into what the science behind rest actually is. Because it's something that we hear a lot, right? We hear a lot about self-care in this industry, especially if you're into self-development or self-improvement, which I'm assuming you are because you are listening to this podcast and that's probably how you found me. But it's a word that really gets thrown around, right? And what does self-care actually mean? And it kind of feels, at least to me in the way that it is often presented or perceived, kind of fluffy and wishy-washy. And it's like, oh, like we're doing our nails or we're taking a bath or we're, getting a massage. And it's like those things are all lovely and can be forms of rest and of course self-care, but it doesn't really hone in on the fact that rest in and of itself is a true necessity. It's not just a nice to have. It's not like, ooh, I just feel like getting my nails done and I happen to have the time, like it's a luxury. No, it is a literal necessity. And we're going to talk about why now. So there is something happening in our world known as the rest deficit. And the stats around rest literally emphasize the fact that this is something that's happening. So 66% of 18,000 people who were part of a study called the rest test said that they were not getting enough rest or would like to be getting more rest, or they were making time for rest, but they would leave that time of resting not actually feeling rested, right? So there's so many layers that are happening there. But that's 2/3 of all of those people who felt like they weren't getting enough rest. In the US, 13% of injuries sustained from work are fatigue related. So we're not getting enough sleep. Our bodies aren't feeling energized enough, and that's affecting our literal physical well being at work. In the UK, 500,000 people are suffering from work related stress. All the stats and the links to these are in the description below. So, really, what this is emphasizing to us is the relationship between rest, our cognitive function, which means our ability to show up in the world based on how rested we are, based on how we're taking care of ourselves. And what this really comes down to is our nervous system. So, the part of our nervous system that focuses on rest is called the parasympathetic nervous system. This part of our nervous system is focused on resting and digesting and reproducing. But the thing with the parasympathetic nervous system, with the rest and digest, is that the body only allows us to shift into this nervous system state when we feel safe. So the body literally has to feel like there is no physical threat or survival danger around us in order to shift into a rest and digest state. So again, in order to rest, we actually need to feel safe. And if we are constantly feeling like we're not getting enough rest because we're feeling stressed out, obviously there's something going on there. So that brings me to the next point, which is there are normalized higher levels of stress in our society today. And what's happening in the body here is we're actually elevating and living with a heightened elevated level of cortisol in the body. So cortisol is a stress hormone that is actually only meant to be activated in forms of long-term stress. So back in the day when there was famine or wars, like we were under a long-term level of stress, that's when cortisol is activated. But today, we feel that level of stress every single day, day in and day out, because it's just normalized in our society. So you're stuck in traffic and you're frustrated, or someone yells at you in traffic, or you're at work and your boss says something, or they, give you feedback that you're not happy with. So there's all of these little moments that are sparking and spiking our stress levels, which is creating this prolonged, heightened level of cortisol. Does that make sense? So these heightened levels of stress are constantly signaling to the body that we are not safe. And therefore, we cannot go into the nervous system state, the parasympathetic nervous system state of rest and digest, which means that what's actually happening is we are living most of our lives with our nervous system in the state of fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. That is the sympathetic nervous system state. Okay. So again, let's just break that down. Heightened levels of stress are creating a state in our bodies where our nervous system is always working in overdrive in this sympathetic nervous system state of fight, flight. And therefore, we have a hard time actually resting or feeling rested when we do rest because we're not fully shifting into the rest and digest parasympathetic nervous system state. And again, all of this starts to snowball together essentially, where we have heightened levels of the stress. We're therefore not feeling rested enough. We can't manage the stress levels because we're not even able to create a safe space to come back to rest. And essentially, what I bring this back to, and this is what I talk about in my signature Sacred Success course, Rest for Success, is that we don't even feel safe resting anymore. If we are constantly looking for danger and fear that is triggered by work and success, then coming back to a state of rest no longer feels safe. Does that make sense? So the reason why this is so important, obviously, number one, we want to be reducing stress. And I know that if you're listening to this, especially, and you resonate with anything that I've said so far, or if you fit into one of the stats that I mentioned at the beginning, then clearly there's a stress issue happening here with these normalized heightened levels of stress. And you're like, I don't want to feel those anymore. I want to ease my stress levels. I want to reduce them. I want to nourish and nurture my nervous system so that I can start shifting back into that parasympathetic state of rest and digest. So one of the functions of rest and digest is actually reducing the stress level, right? And here's the key takeaway that I want to give you. So when we're in the sympathetic nervous system response, which means we are in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn mode, that means that there is stress around us. And like I said before, most of the time it's work stress because that creates a lot of pressure. It's linked to our literal survival. It's like, what if I do this wrong and I lose my job and I can't make money anymore and I can't afford my house and I end up on the street? Like that is survival, being able to meet your basic needs, have a roof over your head, feed yourself and your family, right? And so when we are in a state of stress that's linked to that, we are literally stuck in survival mode. And this is what I actually call survival success, because we are creating success or driving ourselves to create success from this place of fear, from this place of being in survival mode. Does that make sense? So what this actually does when we're in survival mode is you can only focus on the perceived problem in front of you. You have a really hard time actually tapping into innovation, tapping into creativity, tapping into productivity even, or the ideas that can come through to actually create what it is that you want to create, because all you can focus on is surviving. And so when the body feels like there is a perceived danger, it focuses on survival and it keeps you in fight or flight mode, meaning that you're retaining yourself in the stress state. So the key here is knowing how to shift back into rest and digest, so that not only can you release the stress levels, so the high levels of cortisol that you're feeling that are impacting your ability to show up, but also to ease the way that you're feeling in your mind, right? So if we're constantly feeling the stress and the mind is like taking us on a spiral every single day, then all we can do is focus on surviving. We can't thrive. You can't expand. You can't innovate. You can't reproduce something. And I don't mean that only in the literal sense of like producing children, but like producing a creation. So whatever it is that you are wanting to create goal wise, maybe it's writing a novel or starting a business or actually getting the dream job that you want to have, because you are only focused on the survival part right now. Okay. So when we start shifting into a rest and digest state again, and actually, again, the key there is making that feel safe in the body. That's when we start to reduce stress. That's when we start to enhance decision making. That's when these new ideas for innovation and ideas around what it is that you want to create and solutions to the problems that you're experiencing start to expand in front of you and start to expand your success. Let's hone in on that. Let's hone in on how rest can actually fuel this creativity and innovation, because of course, we know logically, and I'm sure you feel this to an extent, that rest can help you reduce stress. But if you're not feeling restful when you rest, or you're still feeling stressed when you rest, of course, that's making rest feel safe again, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But I also want to link this for you to the outcome that you can get in terms of a positive outcome. So it's not just getting rid of the stress, but it's actually gaining something as well, which is this innovation and creativity for your success. And rest fuels this. So if you want to tap into new ideas, new innovations, you want to start thriving and get out of this survival state of, just trying to make it through, which is how your body's perceiving things. What ends up needing to happen is you need to create space in order to bring your nervous system back into a state of rest and digest, so that you can shift yourself into, okay, I can thrive here. And therefore, you can actually make space for the ideas to come through, for the solutions to come through. Again, survival means I can only solve the problem right in front of me. Being in rest and digest means thrival. And that means that I can see a lot of possibilities and I don't feel conflicted or constrained just to this one solution in front of me, because I think that's all I can do in order to just make it to the next day. Okay. So here's a really great example of how rest creates innovation. So it's super simple, but when you're in the shower and you suddenly remember what it was that you wanted to buy at the grocery store, and for the love of God, when you were actually at the grocery store, you could not remember it. And you now are like, oh my God, that was so simple. Like, how could I have forgotten that? This is literally what happens when you create space to rest. And the shower is a really great example, because that's usually where we are not distracted by other things. We're letting our minds kind of go, and we're generally, unless there's something specific stressing us coming up, not feeling the intense stress or pressure in that moment. We're doing something that allows our brain to shift into autopilot, because we don't need to think, okay, I need to like scrub my hair like this. We're just kind of going through the automatic motions. And so it creates space for the brain to kind of like pause for a moment. And that's when you're tapping into that potential for rest. So I'm going to give you one practice right now, one aligned action that is really powerful for practicing shifting into a rest and digest state and practicing making this safe. And that is a practice that I call blank space. And this is literally something that I teach in my course, Rest for Success, because it is so simple, but so powerful. And of course, I go into it in so much more depth in there. And of course, making rest feel safe is a super key element there. But this blank space is just creating space in your day, every single day, to have just a pause. And I like to literally put this in my calendar, or you can like set a reminder on your phone. And for 5 to 10 minutes, don't do anything. Create spaciousness, to stare at the ceiling, to lay on the couch, put your phone in a different room. You can even go out into like a field or a park somewhere and like lay in the field for 5 minutes. But the point is that you're kind of just letting things go. You're not trying to control or survive. And this is a practice of starting to regulate your nervous system and starting to make yourself feel safe in letting go for a moment, because that's really what rest is. The key to making rest feel safe now is creating a rhythm of rest. So I really love the phrase that states polarity creates clarity. So what that means is that you literally require a natural rhythm within yourself and within your life to remain healthy. And in this case, this natural rhythm is between doing and not doing. So polarity between one thing and the other thing, being and not being, doing and not doing, essentially here, resting and doing, resting and executing on something. This is the shift that needs to happen in order to create clarity. We need to have both sides of the spectrum, or in this case, I actually refer to it as a cycle. We need to have the whole completion of the cycle of creation, which includes planning and executing on something, planning and producing, as well as it includes reflection and rest. And we need actually this entire process of this cycle of creation in order to successfully create and also sustain the success that we're wanting to create. So the way that we do this is we start to shift into a cyclical approach to success. And I mentioned this at the very beginning, like this linear approach, which is only focused on planning and executing. We want to bring it into this cyclical approach where we're, again, like I just said, completing the full cycle. And this is a cyclical approach to success, or as I call it, the cyclical success strategy. And the way that we do this is by tuning into your rhythms and your cycles. And I'll talk more about this later. But first, I want to just hone in on why your rhythms of rest are so key in actually getting that regenerating rest. So at the beginning, we talked about the statistics around the science behind rest and how a lot of people rest, but they don't actually feel rested after they rest. And I'm going to tell you why that is. So, if you go on vacation for a week and you don't really feel rested after you come back, right? So you go on vacation and it takes your body first a couple days to actually get comfortable with the fact that we're resting and come down from the heightened level of stress. And what is usually happening here is that those cortisol levels that we talked about earlier are so high that it actually takes the body a couple days to bring them back down to normal. Then what tends to happen is whatever symptoms that the cortisol was covering up tend to surface. So these symptoms can be a low, weak immune system. And when you start to rest, you actually get sick. You might actually have other symptoms that are maybe related to like period pains or digestive issues or any kind of like infection or inflammation. Because what cortisol does, again, if we think about the purpose of it, which was to keep you safe in times of famine or war, for example, it was to just make sure that you could survive to the next day. And then once you were in a safe place, then the body feels safe enough to deal with the issues that might have come up in the process, right? So you need a few days to come down from your heightened level of cortisol when you're actually thinking, oh, I'm on vacation and I'm resting. And then generally the body needs a few days to recover and actually heal, or oftentimes more, to come back to a state of health. And this was something that happened to me all the time. Anytime I took a vacation, I would be like completely bedridden sick for like 4 or 5 days right after like the heightened stress would drop. And interestingly enough, it would also happen when I went back to work. So the cortisol hadn't fully kicked in again yet, and my body was experiencing the symptoms of the fatigue or the low immune system or the digestive issues that I was having. Lots of things were coming up for me. And again, as soon as the cortisol came back, it would cover it temporarily, but that is never a fix. And that puts your body into a massive stress state and puts way too much strain on the body, which is going to create tons of health problems down the line. So essentially, this is a vicious cycle, right? Like you think you're giving yourself time to rest, but you're not actually coming back feeling rested because the vacation time that you had is actually just your body recovering temporarily, and then you actually need more time after that. So one of the things that I teach, and I teach this inside Rest for Success, is creating a rhythm of rest, where rest becomes a cyclical process in your day-to-day life, so that you are constantly giving yourself that pause to regenerate, bring down your cortisol levels, tend to the pain that might be coming up in your body. That's your body speaking to you. It needs something from you, so that you can manage and regulate it now, instead of waiting for that 1 week vacation or a couple weeks of vacation where like your body completely crashes and then you need so much more time to build it up, right? I was actually talking about this on a call earlier, and I gave the example of the like body's thermostat. And it's almost like creating a rhythm of rest is knowing how to turn on the thermostat in your body so that you're constantly regulating the rest and your energy levels and your stress levels, so that you can really support your body and not, again, just wait for the long-term vacation where you then have to rebuild everything. But what ends up happening here is you are able to create more sustainable success because you are actually supporting your body in the process. You're bringing your body into how you are working, and you're using this rhythm of rest, or this so-called thermostat, to support yourself throughout the process, so that you can actually continue to show up and continue to have energy and have more time, as opposed to, again, constricting yourself from all of those wonderful, beautiful things that we so clearly want and need. The other interesting thing about creating a rhythm of rest and incorporating this alchemy of rest into how you create success is it shifts your perspective on how you create things, and actually brings this new perspective of, hey, I actually need this rest in order to fuel my ideas, to fuel my motivation, to recharge myself, to have the energy to execute on things. And one of my students inside Rest for Success, actually, she's so lovely. She's a doula and she's doing such amazing work. But when she started the course, she was feeling like unmotivated in moving things forward in her business. She kind of was lacking clarity in exactly what this looked like, or her unique positioning that would help her stand out and really serve her clients in the way that she wanted to and build out the business. And what we came to find, and what was the biggest mindset shift for her, was that she was actually in a phase of needing to pause. And that can be really hard for us when society tells us that we always need to be doing and producing. But this phase for her really brought her back to understanding, okay, if I pause now and I accept that this is a time for me to regulate my nervous system, create this sustainability in terms of how I work based on this rhythm of rest that I'm incorporating now, what that's going to give me is more innovation to put back into my business. And that's exactly what happened. She came back with a full rebrand, with total clarity in her direction, and is now building out this amazing business that's just flourishing, right? So that is the power of resting. And we don't talk about this because, again, it's not seen as productive, it's seen as laziness. But I want you to take this mindset shift that this is actually fueling your ability to create success. And these are tangible benefits, right? This is business or purpose clarity, work career clarity. This is solutions to problems that you're seeing in front of you. This is being able to show up for your work feeling energized, show up for your family, show up for the people, your loved ones in your life, being able to have a full cup for yourself, right? Allowing yourself to be in the phase that you're in without needing to change something or without feeling guilty. And this is so powerful too. Like, nature does not rush. Why are we rushing ourselves? Why are we rushing our creation? There is a process that we're meant to be in and flow through. And that is, again, opening up the potential to create even bigger success if we don't rush through it. And on top of that, there's productivity, there's flow, there's creativity, there's innovation, all of these literally tangible results that end up coming through from incorporating this powerful but simple tool of rest. So let's talk practical tips of incorporating this alchemy of rest into your life. So creating your rhythm of rest comes back to activating your natural rhythms. In other words, your cycles, your cyclical nature. So understanding how to move through your cycles, how to activate them in terms of how you're creating success is really key to incorporating this rhythm of rest, and also around making rest feel safe again. If rest doesn't feel safe, so if it doesn't feel safe in our bodies with our nervous systems to move into a state of rest and digest, you're going to rest, but it's not going to feel restful, right? Or it's going to be rest that is just compensative rest where you're distracting yourself from the stress that you feel by like watching Netflix, for example. So I teach you how to do this inside Rest for Success. I walk you through the whole process of aligning yourself with your cyclical nature and your cyclical success strategy and actually activating it in your life along with this rhythm of rest so that you are regulating your nervous system, that you are tending to your stress levels, and also that you are opening yourself up for creating even more success without the added stress. So if you are interested in joining Rest for Success, go and get all the links and the details in the description below or in the show notes. This is going to be your foundational course, everything included that you need to revolutionize how you're working and incorporate your rhythm of rest to alchemize the way that you do success through rest. So if this episode resonated with you, I highly encourage you to go and explore the option of joining me inside Rest for Success and joining the other incredible women in there. And please let me know how this episode resonated with you. What was your biggest takeaway? What was an aha moment that really stuck with you or that you're taking into the rest of your day? Once again, please like, share, comment, subscribe, review, all of the good things. It helps us so much here. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time. Are you ready to unlock a whole new level of success? One that's aligned with your natural rhythm, overflowing with energy, and magnetic to the opportunities you desire? Introducing my signature Sacred Success course, Rest for Success, the transformative course that's redefining how women approach achievement, revolutionize work, and create sacred success. Imagine embracing a revolutionary approach to work, one that empowers you to slow down, rest, and harness limitless energy. Discover the secret codes that make you magnetic to success and guide you in working with, not against, your natural cycles, your womb wisdom, and your body. Join me on a journey that embraces rest as the ultimate strategy for success. Why? Well, because we've been so caught up in the hustle and striving, we have created work cycles that are only focused on output and productivity. So the purpose and intention and power and magic of this course is to bring back the entire cycle of how you are into how you are working. And that is where rest comes in. It's more than just self-care. It's more than just slowing down. It's about honoring the full cycle of creation for your creation so that you can unlock a cyclical blueprint for success, heal your burnout and trauma around working and succeeding, and step into a life of freedom frequency where you are the flow CEO. If you're a woman ready to revolutionize your approach to work, to unleash your full energy potential, and to magnetize success with ease, Rest for Success is your ultimate guide. Click the link below to join the waitlist for extra goodies or enroll now and become part of the movement that is changing the way we define and achieve success. Are you ready to embrace restful achievement and step into a life of limitless potential? Then join me inside Rest for Success. Visit oliviaheine.com/rest for success and let's revolutionize your success story together.